to the new frontier, taking responsibility for whatever happens every step of the way. When people refuse to accept responsibility for their lives, they reject their uniqueness and turn all of their power over to other people, situations, or circumstances. It's like what George Bernard Shaw once said, "Liberty means responsibility. That is why most men dread it." They are no longer in control of their future. They'll keep hoping that something good will happen, but because of past experiences, they will very likely be expecting something they do not want to happen. And you can imagine then what happens. That which we fear most has come upon us. Remember, it's the role of responsibility that opens the door to freedom. When you accept responsibility for your life and for the results that you alone determine, you will find yourself developing a new confidence. You'll begin to realize and recognize that your dreams can be realized and your plans can be carried out. Awareness of this magnificent truth is one of the greatest, if not the greatest thing that can happen in your life. It's Aladdin's lamp, a magic wand, and the tooth fairy all wrapped up in one. Dr. Rollo May, a distinguished psychiatrist, once wrote, "The opposite of courage in our society is not cowardice, it's conformity. It requires great courage to take responsibility for your life. It's so much easier to blame someone else or something outside of you." It was George Bernard Shaw, once again, who said, "People are always blaming circumstances for what they are. I don't believe in circumstances. The people who get on in this world are the people who get up and look for the circumstances they want, and if they can't find them, they make them." I believe Shaw was right. In my opinion, those who win big in life take responsibility and create their own destiny. Earlier, I suggested that responsibility brings with it a certain amount of freedom. With the proper understanding and application, responsibility has an additional power to free you of unnecessary mental weight that you may have been carrying around all your life. This additional concept, to which I'm referring, has been misunderstood by many and has probably single-handedly ruined more lives than one can possibly imagine. Ignorance of this principle will most certainly cause a person to experience the destructive emotions of anger, guilt, and resentment. You see, it's one thing to be responsible. It's quite another, however, in fact, a very vast difference between being responsible for and being responsible to. It seems so simple, this for and to business. But I don't want you to let this apparent simplicity to fool you. I'm going to repeat it again. There is a big difference between being responsible for and being responsible to. It's not uncommon to hear parents blame themselves and assume responsibility for something that has happened to their child, and the child might be 40 years old. If only we, or I should have. Far too often, we inappropriately assume responsibility for something when, in fact, our real duty to the person may have ended 20 years ago. In some cases, it wasn't supposed to begin in the first place. Unfortunately, many people carry that responsibility for baggage around with them for life, never realizing they have a choice. The correct interpretation of this is as follows. You are responsible for your feelings and your results, not another person's. You may be responsible to another person for one thing or another, but not for another person. The exception, of course, is when you choose to take on the responsibility of raising children until they reach the age of maturity. In that case, you are both responsible to and for them until such a time as they become responsible for themselves. Unfortunately, many people out there would like to think that they are your children. You might be their boss, their mentor, their teacher, their pastor, their governmental leader, the person in charge of the PTA, even just a friend. But they often insist that you take on the inappropriate mantle of parent by assuming that you're responsible for their failures or lack of success. I remember the chairman of the FCC, Newton Minow, once said, "We've gotten to the point where everybody's got a right and nobody's got a responsibility." You see, people who struggle against facing up to their own responsibilities, they want to make it anyone else's responsibilities but their own, because that's a hard mirror to look at oneself in. Let's approach this from the person who wants to make another person responsible for their lives.